Welcome to the Ambitious Broker Podcast, where elite real estate professionals share their secrets to success, discuss topics impacting their industry, and gain professional development insights. Enjoy today's episode.
Welcome everyone to this episode of Ambitious Broker. And today I thought we were going to talk a little bit about accountability. It's a big issue in the real estate brokerage business. And today I've got with me Coach Steve Pfrenzinger, and Coach is going to be with us a lot during the series with Ambitious Broker. And just real quickly, Steve, not to embarrass you, but I want to let people know who's giving the advice, and that's you.
Okay.
And you know, Steve's a longtime entrepreneur. He's helped dozens of companies as an angel investor. In fact, a Hall of Fame was entered in the Hall of Fame as a Hall of Fame investor, helping entrepreneurs start companies and so forth. Of course, you've had some tech companies you started and sold yourself, and you've been a coach for a long time as well, speaker, writer, and you're also now writing some articles with Forbes magazine. And I've had a chance to, take a look at those. Coaching for people from Sony to Tesla to Broadcom, I think, Disney, SpaceX. So quite a background in talking about this. So today, Steve, we're going to talk about an article that I saw that you had written in Forbes, and it really dealt with the accountability and accountability partners. So with that, I'd like to say hi to you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that that intro. I've had a wonderful career, and I've just had a lot of fun. And the coaching side of it has really been special for me because I've had a chance to do a lot of things in my career. But I look back, and the coaching side of it is that there's really nothing better than helping people have that aha moment or that epiphany when I can help them make some realization about themselves. Whether it's self-awareness or a strength or a weakness, it's always been fun for me to help people make these discoveries. And one of them is, there are sort of 5 pillars to my approach to coaching. One is personality and understanding your personality type. The other is your personal brand and understanding how others see you, the authentic you.
Right.
There's mindset and how to control that sort of that voice in your head that often doesn't support what you're doing. Then there's the issue of visibility and whether or not you're professionally visible or invisible and things you can do. And the final pillar is the journey. When you have a goal and the goal has a plan and the plan has to unfold in a journey, it's so interesting because that has become so important because we have this vision of what we want. We set our goals, and then we're off in that direction. And there are so many things that can happen on the journey that can take us sideways that I've discovered, especially with my executive coaching, that people need to be checked in with periodically to make sure they're still on course, that there aren't things going on that are going to take them sideways. So yeah, the whole concept of journey and journey accountability is absolutely essential to anybody that wants to have a significant
and
career.
have you found, I know for me personally, and also for a lot of the people that I've coached and, some of the probably hundreds of the agents that I've had, work in my company throughout the years, it seems like there's always some letdown at the goal. And I tell people all the time, getting engaged in that journey, so that you have that day-to-day success. It's a big part of it, right? To stay acquainted with that. In fact, I remember even, I used to say to people that, when I first started my company, how fun it was, the real estate company, how fun it was at first because it felt like, I had this chain over my shoulder and I'm pulling this train. And it was such a great feeling because you kept, it was great work and hard work, and you push and you push and you push, and you're going up this hill, and then you reach some level, and then for me, I felt like it was almost like you sort of ease up a little bit, and you're sort of going downhill a little bit, and then all of a sudden, instead of pulling the train with great enthusiasm, you're running to keep the train from running over you, you know. So. But that day-to-day thing is just critical.
Well,
I think.
there's a lot of theory behind the whole issue of setting a goal, and then once you achieve it, essentially, sort of, easing up too much, and one of the things I try to teach people is you have to understand that you need to obtain a goal and you need to sustain the goal. And they're two different things. You can reach it and then you can take your foot off the gas and all of a sudden, you lose it and you say, where did it go? And it says, well, you didn't work on sustain, because it's one thing to get it, it's another to sustain it. But as far as the journey goes, what's really important is that too many people wait to enjoy the result of the journey. And I'm a big believer that you need to enjoy the journey.
The day-to-day, absolutely.
You need to understand how to be happy and how to feel content. And one of the things I live by is the concept that progress equals happiness. If I make progress each day toward my goals, I'm going to sleep like a baby. I'm going to start the next morning fired up and ready to go. Because if I'm going to wait until I get to the end of my journey before I celebrate or enjoy myself, I'm probably not going to make it.
Oh, I agree with you. I talk to people all the time about that, because in real estate, if you have a sale or two a month, if you have one sale a month today in real estate nationally, that puts you in about the top 10, 15% of the whole industry.
Yeah.
It's different today than it was in the older days. But that means that, if you're in the top 15%, you're only succeeding once a month. One sale every 30 days. That means 29 days you're failing to make a sale. Yeah. And so to your point, how do you sustain, it becomes a really big part of it.
It's funny. I think, you and I have used sports analogies before, but if you can hit 300 as a baseball player, you're going to get in the Hall of Fame. And that means you're going to fail 70% of the time.
Right.
So the idea of failure, well, you really can't look at it as failure. I decided a long time ago, I don't even like to use that word. To me, there's no such thing as failure. There's only a result. You tried something, you got a result, you didn't like it, you try it again. Right. I think language is very important. You have to look at what you say, because your mind has this uncanny ability to repeat things to you. So let's say you're mad at somebody and you say, that son of a bitch stabbed me in the back. Boy, the mind's going to take that and you're going to hear that 1,000 times.
Yeah, it'll play it over and over.
It'll play it over and over.
Right.
But if you calmly think about it and you say, I'm really not happy with him, the mind doesn't even hear it. Mind goes, eh.
Right.
So you really have to be careful. So don't get focused on failure. Just get focused on results, because it doesn't create any negative context. Say, hey, it's a result. It's like going to the golf range and not hitting the ball as well as you want to. You didn't like the result.
This COVID thing is huge now, of course, and so now they're working on the virus. Mm-hmm. And you think about how much failure they have every day in these laboratories. And it's going on in dozens of places around the world. And every day it's constant failure. And they keep the big picture in mind. But if every failure would demoralize these people, can you imagine we would have no virus, exactly. Or no vaccines.
Well, think Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison.
Yeah.
He tried. He failed.
Yeah.
Had a negative result 10,000 times.
Right.
But he finally got it. So if you're
and that's a day-to-day thing. It's just every event that doesn't work out right, whether it be a cold call.
That's one less thing that doesn't work. That's one less thing that doesn't work. So
exactly.
The whole thing is you got to move the ball forward, and that's what lets you sleep at night. If you work your butt off every day, late into the night, and you go to bed unsatisfied, it's gonna show up in your work. You're not going to sleep well. You're going to get up the next day. You're going to be lethargic. Things aren't going to work. So, just be able to reflect on what you've done and appreciate that it represents progress. And if it doesn't, then you need to look at what you did. Matter of fact, you need to look at what you do on a daily basis.
Well, I think it's a good segue into what we're here to talk about today, and that's accountability and how you can achieve that kind of accountability, right?
Right.
So let me see if I hope that they can get this, but we'll make sure that Christopher, our producer, gets the information about your website. But this is the latest Forbes article that I've read of yours, and it addresses this accountability. And I noticed one of the first things you said is that we all know what to do. Right. Yeah. And that's not entirely true, but I mean, we know a lot. We know enough about what to do.
We know generally, yeah.
Yeah, that's not getting done. So you've said the bottom line is you know what to do, and now you need to know
need to do.
You need to do what you know.
Right. Yeah.
And that probably
that pretty well summarizes it, I think. Matter of fact, I get interviewed a lot as a coach, and they'll ask me this general question: what's the number one piece of advice you give people? And it's always a funny question because I'm always responding to sort of unique situations. But there is one thing that comes up with almost every coaching client, and that is I'm sharing advice and I'm sharing concepts and answers to such. And I'll occasionally get that, yeah, coach, I know that already. And then there's usually a moment of quiet. And again, if I know them well enough to say this, I do. I say often, yes, you know that, but you don't do that.
Are you doing that? Right.
And that is a real moment of truth with a coaching client because you're basically calling them on the carpet.
Yeah.
You say you understand how important that is, but I don't see you taking action on it.
Right. And I do that. Even go back to athletics. I mean, even in coaching football, because I've done a lot of, as you know, I've done a lot of coaching high school football and things. And you watch these young athletes, and you'll say, well, I told you to do this. Well, I did, coach. Well, did you? And you think about it, oh, well, maybe not exactly like that. Well, exactly. That's my point. You didn't do it exactly like that. Go back, do it again, practice, rehearse, and so forth. Yeah. And they get it down.
No, that's true. And I think, and it's so true in so many things. It's so weird. Our minds have, our minds don't always support our activities. Here we learn these great concepts and then we go off to try to implement them. And, the mind was designed originally, back in caveman days when the mind was there to keep you alive. There were large animals roaming the world, or the earth, wanting to eat you. So everything you did, you had to be careful. The mind had to say, be careful, look around the corner. Ooh, don't do that. Don't take those chances. So the mind has always been there to kind of slow you down, to stop you. Oh, don't expose yourself to that criticism. Don't speak up. They may not like what you say. So you got to realize that little voice in your head often is trying to protect you, but in some ways it can be overly protective and keep you from taking the action that you need to take.
Right.
And those actions sometimes are a little uncomfortable.
They're risky.
They're risky, but...
It's the same thing as Xerox did a study years ago that I had read. It was interesting. And they were talking the same thing. And the study, this is back in the 80s, but the study was on creativity. Is creativity something that you can learn, or is it just innate in some people? We see people that can paint or sing, or they're musicians, or they're whatever. Is creativity something that is teachable? And so in the research in the study, they did the same thing. They said that to protect ourselves, we end up being very, very habitual. And one of the examples I gave is that you get up in the morning and you go through the same process. You put socks on, left foot, right foot, and then your pants or your underwear, your pants, or your shirt first, then your pants. So finding that proper sequence, and there's thousands of different options just getting dressed, brushing your teeth before you put your clothes on, or before you shower, or after you shower. So the idea is that if you lived every minute of your life trying to redecide this stuff, that it would blow your fuse. So they said that we form these habits, to your point a little bit, to protect ourselves.
Exactly.
So
to make
us
comfortable to know that if I follow this pattern, I'm going to get up in time, get dressed, and get out the door. And it's all going to work if I just automatically repeat. And repeat gets boring.
Yeah.
It gets boring. It's funny. There's certain concepts in life where you're at times when you want certainty and you want safety and you want predictability and you want the job and the paycheck and the house to go home to and the food on the table. And that certainty can be wonderfully comforting, but at times it can be very boring. And there are times in our life when we seek the opposite of that, which is uncertainty, which is adventure and going into challenge and taking risks and things like that.
Right.
So I think we find ourselves sometimes going back and forth, and sometimes we'll be in that uncertainty mode and say, I think I want to go back to this. So you almost have to ask yourself, where are you at this point in time? Are you seeking certainty, or are you seeking the adventure of uncertainty?
Right. So your article says starting your journey, and you say to start a specific set of goals, and a clear plan of action is needed. So where do you go from there?
Well, first off, people make such a big deal about planning, but planning is pretty simple in many ways. You simply look at the end result that you want, and you just walk backwards, things you have to accomplish to get there. And then you lay them out in a sequence that you need to knock them off, and things that can run in parallel, you show them in parallel. I jokingly sometimes we'll talk about, if your goal is to get married and have kids and the white picket fence and all that, well, you got to meet somebody, you got to get serious, you got to meet their parents, you got to ask them to marry you, you got to plan the wedding.
Right.
So there's, planning is
people know how to do that, don't they? I mean, inherently you know how to do that.
People know how to. Matter of fact, it's funny. I forget who it was. Some famous executive wrote a book on planning and how to run an operation, and his entire example was around making a bacon and egg breakfast. He'd say, when I walk out there, I've got to make toast, I've got to fry the eggs, I've got to nuke the bacon, and it talked about the whole issue of running a business around. It's no different than cooking breakfast.
Right.
An egg, bacon.
I want to end up with a plate.
That's right.
With eggs and
some things have a little more lead time than others, and
right.
and this has to be worked here, and I put the toast in last,
right.
and that, so that can all come together out at the end as a final product. So
right.
planning is often is made too big of a deal. It's kind of like making a bacon and eggs breakfast.
If you can get over the first obstacle, which is the goal, and I got to tell you something. After running my company for 5 or 6 years, and as you know, I started the real estate company pretty early, and I was born
real early. You were very young.
Yeah, I was just I think with my parenting or whatever it was, I just always had something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So the idea of getting goals was never, to me it was have less goals, because I wanted to always do something and more. And the next thing and so forth. And so when I got in the real estate business and I started, my sales career, I got out and, it was very simple. I mean, this is the next thing I want to do, next thing I want to do, next thing. So the idea of setting a goal was just so natural that I never even thought of it in terms of setting a goal. To your point, we don't sit down at breakfast and say, I have a goal. I'm going to make a plate of eggs and toast and stuff. You
what
just do
comes
it,
first?
Right?
What do I do first?
Yeah, it's just natural, it just flows.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the way it was for me. But when I started my company, and after working with salespeople for 3 or 4 years, I was probably one of the biggest takeaways for me was how unnatural it was for a lot of people. And I'm not sure why it was, but to actually sit down and say, okay, let's talk about a goal, let's talk about this plan, and let's try to get this thing out. But once we've done that, so now I've got my goal, got my plan, we finally got through that first obstacle. Now, what's next?
Well, what's funny, just to play on this, the whole issue of a plan means you have to commit to something, okay? And again, the mind sits and says, ooh, now do you really want to commit to that? Or what are people going to think if you don't reach your goals and such? So again, I think the mind may be talking to some people and say, hey, don't tell everybody you have a plan.
Right.
Don't work that plan, because that plan is going to hold your feet to the fire.
Right.
And stuff like that.
Right.
So again, you're going to have to get over that protective nature that the mind wants, the protective game that the mind wants to play.
So you're fighting human nature, you're saying.
Exactly. You want to be the best way to be safe. The best way to be safe is don't take a risk. Don't take a risk.
Yeah, that's the way it looks with. I notice my work with the Association of Realtors. Every time something comes up, the attorneys go, no, and I've actually said sometimes, is there ever a time where an attorney says yes? Because the question it's always risky. They never say yes.
They're there. Their job is to tell you the risk. And
they're
your brain's going, ooh, that may not work out. What if they say no?
There's some chance of failure. When I first started, people would say, God, it took a lot of guts to do that. And my whole thing was to say, well, I never thought about it that way, because I felt like if I didn't succeed at something, I'd be like the rest of my friends anyway. That wasn't so bad, So take a chance. Why fail, on it? But once you get started, once you said you take that risk and you say, now this is what I'm going to do.
Sure.
For me personally, part of that self-awareness as you get older was realizing I think about a lot of things I want to do, but they run in my brain.
Yeah.
And to me, we're talking about accountability, and my way of being accountable was I would never set a goal until I really, really said, okay, I'm ready to go. And then my trick for me was then I started telling everybody.
Yep, that's a key.
I tell everybody. And I would tell people because I knew the thing is, as soon as I told people that, I put myself in this corner and I couldn't get out of it. In other words, I wouldn't have had the guts to go back to you and say, and have you say to me, well, Roger, how did how get that second office going? Did you get that up and rolling? And I'd feel like I should crawl back in a hole someplace.
Yeah.
And I never wanted that feeling.
Yeah.
Ever wanted that feeling. So as soon as I said, okay, I'm going to take a big chunk, big gulp and run, it would be start telling everybody.
Absolutely. As soon as you do, it's a subtle form of pressure, but it's a positive form, because the journey has so many things happen. When you're on a journey, the things that happen sort of run between bumps all the way to barriers. And I think from a challenging standpoint, I think we're more geared to take on the barriers because we see it, we attack it. But it's those daily little bumps. It's somebody saying no to what you're proposing, or you get some negative feedback, that's so on. And I think it's the bumps that sort of wear you down after a while, and that's why having a journey accountability, and even having an accountability partner, which is really just a coach who meets with you periodically to discuss your progress and to take your temperature and check your mindset.
Right.
And that's why when I wrote this article, I put in there a list of questions that I had developed over the years, because I was coaching all of these executives, and we sort of had a monthly encounter where we would meet, and I would send them these questions. They would answer all these questions, and then that would be the basis, for the meeting. And it's funny because a few of the questions were around, have you met your goals? But much of it was around, where your head was at,
right.
How you were feeling. Were you sleeping good? Are you getting exercise? Do you have balance in your life? all the peripheral things around your activities.
Well, you have like 19 questions here.
It's grown. It's grown, but it's once, it's kind of once a month.
So you're going to be asking the accountability partner or coach.
Yeah.
Is someone who's going to be analyzing that set of goals that you define. And then they're going to look at your plan. Mm-hmm. Maybe a good coach would even help you design the plan a little bit.
Yeah, it depends on when they get involved, yeah.
And then those daily accomplishments that lead to your goal are things that require action. So those questions are going to be, you got some general questions, but they may be more specific based on your specific set of goals. The questions
are specifically designed to raise issues that could be affecting your journey.
Okay.
Do you have any negative self-talk? What's it saying? Well, I get a lot of this voice that says you're going to screw this up. This isn't going to work. You're going to run out of money.
Right.
Well, we need to talk about that, because enough talk like that is going to create doubt in your mind, and doubt is going to create, some is going to alter your behavior, in your journey and stuff. That's why it's good to talk about these things. And a good accountability partner, you need to feel good about sharing with them the ups and downs and the pluses and the minuses, and it goes. And that's one reason I'm not wild about having family and friends do those kind of things. This really needs to be somebody you respect and who's not afraid to hold your feet to the fire.
So, in the real estate business, it's kind of interesting, because back in the days when I first started my company, I felt like the coaching, that was one of my primary responsibilities as a broker, as a business owner, is I felt like if you come in here, my job is to help move you forward. And a big piece of that was coaching. Yeah. And it's been very interesting as the business has evolved, and largely because the commission structures have changed so radically, and offices have gotten bigger. You don't see that so much. And it's really interesting with my coaching today with guys who own and manage real estate offices is how radically different it is. I tell people all the time, because most real estate companies don't even profit $1,000 a month, per agent. Not even close for the most part. And that wasn't always true. But I tell guys today, why is it that accountability coaches today take your agent and they make $750 or $1,000 or $1,500 a month on your agent, and you're not making that yourself? What's missing in your business? What is missing in your business? And it's clearly coaching. It's clearly coaching because of this need that you're talking about having here. So how do I pick a coach? How does anyone pick a coach?
Oh boy, that's a great question.
And for our ambitious brokers, it's likely not going to be the guys who run their company anymore.
Yeah, I think those days are over. I think it has to be certainly somebody you respect. And it's funny, whether a lot of people will ask me, they're young and they want a mentor, and they say, I would love to have a mentor. And I said, well, just reach out to somebody. Tell them that you've always respected them in their position and you're looking at their profession, and if there's any chance you'd be willing to share some time to help me make a decision about getting in the career. So I tell people, you'll be surprised how approachable people are to coaching, especially if there's just a teeny bit of gray hair in there, grayness in their hair, and they've been around. Because most successful people, and those are the best coaches, obviously, have a soft spot for the people on the way up, and so you really shouldn't be afraid to reach out to those. Now, in some cases, sometimes you have to find somebody who charges money for it, and to be honest, I have no problem with coaches that charge money. Matter of fact, my philosophy has always been, if you don't pay for something, and if you don't pay attention.
Well, I think I have found that same thing to be true.
Yeah.
If you're going to invest, it means it's important to you. Going to the gym, you pay a trainer, you just have gym membership. I know I have a trainer, and boy, it's really hard to look at that guy and say, it was just too hard to get out of bed this morning.
Yeah. It's funny, Russell Brunson is a very wealthy guy that started a company called ClickFunnels, and he said it was so interesting that he learned that lesson because he'd fill a room with people, half of them had paid and half were friends and family and others that he just let attend for free. And afterwards, he'd sort of check on their progress, and 95% of the progress came from the people who paid.
Right.
And next to nothing happened from the people who didn't.
It's commitment.
It's commitment. It's, hey, if you paid for it, you're going to use it.
Right.
So the fact that somebody wants to charge you to help you, that's not a bad thing.
Well, and to your point,
it's a good thing.
The great athletes are paying guys to help them, and they're far better than the coaches at what they do. Yeah. They just see something different. They take the emotion out of it. They take they're not living with the rejection that's evolving you, and they can come back and clear it up. Okay, wipe the board, get rid of all that emotion and that rejection, and let's start fresh today or this week.
Coaches are great for honest feedback, because in reality we really don't observe ourselves well. We observe other people, but for some reason we don't see ourselves very well. I've got a funny quick story I want to tell you. I was early in my career and I got invited to speak in a panel situation. I was one of 4 people with a moderator, and it was over. I was just so just crazy confident that I had done well. I answered every question. I felt articulate. I walked off the stage going, man, I nailed that. And my wife is out in the audience because she came. We were going to go out to lunch afterwards. And I walked up to her very confidently and said, hey, honey, how did I do? And she goes, that was awful. And I went, what? She says, you were chewing gum and smacking it. Everybody in the room could hear you chewing gum. And you were tapping your foot. It was a hardwood floor. What song was that? It was like you were tapping it to a song. She said, the only thing people heard was you smacking your gum and tapping your foot. And I'm going, oh my God, what if she wasn't there to tell me that? Nobody in that room, nobody would have told me that.
And that's interesting.
And I would have left that day thinking, nailed it.
And a lot of wives would have said, oh, you were great, honey. Right?
Not my wife. Not my wife.
No, Mitch, yeah. But the point was that was valuable.
Oh.
So if you're looking for a coach and you're not paying for a coach because maybe you're early in the game and you can't write that check yet.
Yeah.
Let's just, and you're seeking out someone who can do that. that thing that your wife did, that's critical.
Well, it is. I think, there's two sides. There's you wanting to get the necessary feedback. And if you want it, you've got to be willing to give it. So, I like to let people know that, I've had all of these epiphany moments where I've had this incredible feedback to the point where I want people to know, listen, I want your honest feedback.
Right.
And I want you to know that. And I'm willing to give it to you as well, because feedback is something. It's first off, it has to be comprehensive, it has to be timely, and it has to be actionable. When somebody gives me feedback, if somebody again, it's trying to be a little humorous, if somebody calls you a jerk, what do you say? You say, well, could you be more specific? That doesn't tell me enough. Why am I a jerk? It has to be timely. It's like my wife telling me she's upset with me. She says, well, 2 weeks ago you said this. I said, 2 weeks? How about
holding it back?
How about telling me? How about telling me sooner?
Right.
And then there's actionable. I mean, don't tell me I need to be taller. I don't know.
And you don't, by the way.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
But exactly how do I take action on that and stuff like that. So feedback is so important. That's really what the coach is there to do. And the questions are there just to draw you out and try to discuss. I realize the questions I wrote are really geared more toward the executive or the tech executive, the tech entrepreneur, the tech innovator. Whereas I suspect if you were going to do one related to, the real estate profession, it would probably be it would be somewhat tailored, but very similar, like I said, very similar.
Yeah, and I'm going to read them here. We're going to go over them a few at a time here. But it is true. And in real estate, a lot of what you want to do, it all starts with what's the goal, what's the plan to get there, and what pieces of that puzzle need to be put in place this week.
That's right.
And then the questions are related to,
right.
So there are general questions, because it is true that how you feel every day when you wake up, your mindset and all that's important. And some of your questions are geared to that. Let's read some of them.
Sure.
Like the first one says, based on 3 or more actions that you identified in the last session, so that's the door knocking, the call for sub-owners, set appointments, do follow-up and whatever.
Add 10 clients to the database.
Right.
Whatever.
So what specifically have you either accomplished or made noticeable progress on during the most recent period, week, month, whatever?
Exactly.
Okay. What's going great for you lately? So talk about successes.
Well, it's interesting. If people are honest and you say, what's going great in your life? What are the highs? Or then asking, well, then what's not so great? The lows. It'll be interesting what comes up.
Right.
They'll say something like, well, gosh, I went to the doctor and they said, my blood test didn't look good and stuff like that. And that's good. That's good for a coach to know, because let's face it, that's the kind of stuff that impacts performance.
We talk about these guys that go to the gym and they work out, they try to get stronger and so forth. And there are times when you're going in and you're on the bench press and you're doing one weight, and you'll go 2-3 weeks and that doesn't change, And then, so during those times, if we're talking, usually you get that feedback from the guys around you at the gym.
Yeah.
But usually, all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, I haven't gone up any. And then all of a sudden you'll have this little breakthrough. So that week you're going, man, I bumped up 5 pounds this week or something.
Right.
You're all excited about it. And it's those those incremental increases, And so that's what you want to talk about. The lows, when you're low, to remind you
exactly
you're not going to stay there. Keep doing that stuff. And then the highs to remind you why you're doing the work to begin with.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, so what's not going on so great? We talked about that. You said, how would you describe your mind, your state of mind, and then on a scale of 1 to 10?
Exactly, because again, your mind is so integrated into who you are, and basically, what's it telling you? Is it telling you you can't do this, or you can do this? Is it telling you to work harder or take it easier, go home early and go to bed early?
Right.
Your mind is your partner in life, and it's there, and it's going to talk to you. So it's like, what's it telling you? What's it telling you?
One of the things the coaching that we do is I ask people, what's the number one subject to master to be great at real estate, and everyone goes off on some tangent, well, prospecting or follow-up or whatever, and the answer is you. I said, you're the most important subject. Everything else is sort of secondary, because ultimately it gets back to what you said. You know what to do. Are you doing it?
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing it, that means you are the subject that you're not mastering yet, right? So this mindset thing. So when you're with someone and you're going through this talking mindset, what are you hearing, feeling? What are you saying? How are you moving people along?
Well, they'll say things like, my outreach program hasn't produced the results I want yet, and I'm starting to question whether it's the right thing. And then we'll go into depth. What program are you following? You're in a company. Are there other people in the company that are having success using that? Oh gosh, yes. There's dozens of people who follow that program and have success. So, well, we know it works, right? So what's the variable here? You. So we got to figure out what it is, you're doing.
Back to you.
And it can be as subtle as body language. What people don't realize is the words you say are such a small part of a communication. It's how you say the words, and it's your body language. Body language is better than half of an entire communication. So if you're out there trying to meet people, and you're saying the words, but you're all hunched over and you're looking down at the ground like this, that there's just people don't realize. Even the words "I love you" can be said, "I love you," or you can make a gesture like this. So again, words. People have to realize that it's not just the words. Words are such a small piece of it. It's got to be. They have to be delivered. It's a total communication. They have to be delivered in an upbeat fashion, and your body has to reflect the message that you're giving.
Yeah, it's really funny to say that, because in real estate, I say at the highest level, we sell credibility.
Right.
And we manage information, properties, people, and so forth. But credibility is the issue. And I've noticed that through the years, even the way people dress, and while society's got more casual in general and accepting of casual, I've noticed that on all the things you see on television. Now, understand television broadcasting, they're the great communicators, right? They've got this to a science.
And they're reading scripts.
Or teleprompters.
Teleprompters, yeah.
But they're the great communicators. Yeah. And to the point you're making, I've noticed that they haven't gotten more casual in their dress.
Oh, I see your point. They're still in suits, even though everybody else is wearing.
Everybody's gotten casual, but something about that body language. All those broadcasters, they learn how to project. They could sit here and tell you 2 + 2 is 5, and have you believe in it, because the rest of what they do is so well done, right? The posturing, the presentation, Yeah,
it's a package, and people forget that sometimes. They get too focused on the words, and the words can often mean very little.
All right, let's see some of these others. Do you have any big or troublesome decisions that you're dealing with? So maybe to help people through some challenges and just
there could be. I mean, there could be an issue with their car lease is coming to an end, and they're trying to decide between leasing another car and buying one. It just is that there's something. There's a big decision that they have to make, and believe it or not, that can take mind share.
Yep.
There's only so much mind share you can apply to something that requires a creative solution.
So get some of the easy stuff out of the way.
Yeah, or
take
just
it off the plate.
Yeah, take it off the plate.
Are you feeling overwhelmed, having outbursts of emotions or depression?
Yeah, I've had clients say, I go home and I'm very sensitive. I've been yelling at my kids lately. I'm sitting there going, whoa, what do you think is driving that? So all of these are questions to explore and to sort of find what's the root cause. I mean, if you go home every night and get in a fight,
exactly, yeah,
something's not working. Let's talk about it. Again, most of these are here to stimulate conversation and open.
That speaks to environment a lot too. So does this next question you wrote here, which I like. It says, do you have any conflicting actions, goals, or priorities? And what are they? Are they holding you back?
Right.
Now, here's something that our producer Chris talks about. He says, ambitious broker is about taking the industry back.
Yeah.
And that seems so big and broad, and a lot of the people that are watching our show may not quite get that. But anybody who's studying the evolution of real estate brokerage knows there's some crises going on right now. And I've said in the past that we've got a missing. The middle class of real estate is starting to shrink, and that's an important part of it. You have the super productive, and then 75% of the people now that are doing less than 3 transactions a year. It's overwhelmingly mediocre.
Yeah.
And so if you have these offices, I've noticed that the people that do very, very well are a very, very small part of most real estate offices now. So if you think about, they go into these environments every day, and they've got mindsets all straight. They talk to their coach, everything is great. And then they saw you on Tuesday, in the Tuesday afternoon, they're back in that office, or they're back around people who aren't aligned with their thinking. Right? And then the next thing you know, you're hearing all these mediocre people, you don't need to do that, you don't need to do that, laugh at you because you're talking to a coach to begin with. And so that wears on you.
Yeah.
That wears on you. There's actually a study, and people can look it up on YouTube, called the ASH studies, ASCH, and it's a really interesting psychological study about how people, if you're in a group of people, they'll change your mind, even if it makes total sense to you. I talked to my coach today. My coach said, I got to do this. Then you get in a room of 30 people, and 28 of them are going, why? Why would you do that?
Why would you do that?
That's crazy. You don't need to do that. Well, of course, they don't need to do it because they only want to do one sale this year.
That's right.
So that's kind of what you're talking about here, kind of get people back on track a little bit here.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised. There's so many things that can be conflicting. I've seen people doing extremely well at a company, and the company was going literally on the verge of bankruptcy. So here you are excelling in your job, but you're on a ship. You're on a sinking ship.
Right.
So the conflict there is, wow, I'm doing great, but maybe I'm not. I need to change ships.
Yeah.
I need to get on in an environment that is positive across the board.
Yeah. Here's one. Has anything happened that causes you to question your overall plan, action, and its many steps? And in a way, the steps should always be second guessed a little bit, or at least reviewed and discussed. But the overall destination,
I think what I'm trying to say is, you've set a goal and you've determined the steps to get there. Has anything caused you to rethink that goal?
Right.
Because if it has, you're going to find yourself being very weak in your actions to move forward.
Right. It's a good thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Because that's a natural occurrence, don't you think? As people are bombarded with resistance or rejection, and as they're trying to battle through, they hit all these obstacles. It's very easy in face of all that to go, did I really want to do this anyway? It's very easy, especially when you're in an environment where, like your loved ones will say, no, it's not that important. Come, let me hug you, kiss you.
There's input coming in lots of directions here.
Okay, let me see here. Let's generally speaking here, real quickly. Are you getting regular exercise?
That's important.
Is it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? How long are you doing it for, and so forth? And you think that's important because?
Well, because the people, let's just say I've met a lot of very successful people who are in horrible physical shape, and in many cases their relationships are in bad shape. And if you don't have some level of balance in your life, you're headed to a problem. Matter of fact, when somebody tells me they have a passion for something, I tell them to look up the Latin root for passion, and that word is suffering. Okay, passion means suffering, and because to have a passion for anything means that it's going to dominate your life and take you away from other areas, like your family, your relationships, your health, and things like that. So it's important that you have that balance. And so understanding that you have to get up an hour early, do those exercises, get those 10,000 steps is key, because that'll give you the vitality to stay the course. Right.
Yeah, I think it was Lombardi said fatigue makes cowards out of all of us. So if that rest and all that stuff is important.
Yep.
Okay, let's see here. Knowing that most good things, I don't want the passion thing again. real quickly in the balance thing. Because I think, same thing. I was on a panel maybe 4 or 5 years ago. The last question they asked, it was an entrepreneurs panel, and the last question they asked was, what do you think about balance, or how do you accomplish balance? And I was honest. I said, I'll be honest with you. I'm the last person to ask about balance because I don't have a clue, and it's rooted in passion. I just don't believe. I believe personally that anybody who says they're balanced, they're grossly underachieving somewhere. Because you don't do great stuff without giving something up. And so balance to me
depends. I mean, if you end up at the finish line and you weigh 300 pounds and you're divorced and your kids hate you, was that success?
Right.
So balance is surprisingly easy. Sometimes it's as easy as getting up an hour early and getting a little exercise.
Right.
There's things you can do because passion is so all-consuming, and you have to learn the most important word in the English language: no.
Right.
When people demand your time and it's not an important item in your life, you have to learn to say no, because we want to say yes. We're conditioned to say yes, but you have to learn to say no to things that continually dominate our life in such a way that other areas of our life suffer.
Yeah. I think that when you really want to get something started, you have to put your foot on the your foot on the paddle. You got to, and it's gonna make other things in your life
That's right.
be minimized. And I think one of the things is to bring those other people into your set of goals and get their buy-in also, and understand that the wife is going to see you less, or the husband's going to see you less. And I know in my world as the owner of a real estate company, and having hundreds of agents, I saw often where particularly women would come into the business, and all of a sudden that wrecks the whole norm for those families. Right. They had this regular rhythm, and all of a sudden now they're going to a listing presentation at nighttime, and dinner doesn't get cooked, or so part of the dealing with that is not just to give up that listing presentation, but also to bring everybody in your world into your set of goals. I'm going to need a little bit of forgiveness here, guys. Sure. 'Cause I'm trying to get this accomplished, and here's how we all win.
But if it's 24/7, 12 months a year, year after year, every new undertaking requires some initiative, some momentum building.
Right.
Like a snowball. I got to get it going.
Right.
But once it's going, then you have to find a way to create some level of balance, or because that level of consuming who you are is going to lead to trouble.
Right.
And so the point is, yes, there are times when you have to give it your all, but once it's up and going, that's when you can say, I'm going to take this afternoon off, or I'm going to come in late, or I'm going to take the weekend off and spend it with my family.
Gary Keller, who is started, or one of the founders of the Keller Williams Real Estate Company, he has a great line, and one of my favorites that I've heard anybody say, and he says, I think it's more about counterbalance. He goes, I don't think there's ever necessarily perfect balance, but you're always sort of counterbalancing things to keep the whole thing in balance.
That's right.
And it makes sense. It really does. And it's such a wearing thing on you. It's why that accountability coach, to bring that discussion to help you through the counterbalance.
Yeah, to help you sort it out, because a good coach has seen this. I mean, I see this so often that I can have this discussion. What's new to some people that I coach is not new to me. So I'm able to give them that sort of perspective that they have to find this level of balance. There are times when you give it your all, but it's a little bit like, putting your pedal to the metal on your car. If you drove your car pedal to the metal, what would happen to the engine? You'd burn it up. You'd burn out. Well, guess what?
Run out of gas.
Same thing happens with the body.
Yeah. So. All right. So let's wrap up with two things. Okay. One, if you were someone who was starting your journey to pursue some set of goals, and you says, well, I need to have an accountability partner / coach, tell me what you would look for in that person.
Well, I think me personally, I would probably try to find somebody who's already successful at what I want, to do.
Right.
So I would at least start by identifying somebody who's doing what I want to do, and then reach out to them and just simply acknowledge your interest in this career and in their success and their story. I mean, who doesn't want to share their story?
Right.
So I would say, so somebody who's already doing what you're doing, or somebody who has a reputation, as a coach and as somebody who offers a service to help play that role, that accountability role. So I'd say, again, it's either somebody that's doing what you want to do already.
A lot of people who have done very well for a long period of time, they actually like to help people.
Oh,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's absolutely true. Mm-hmm. I mean, how else can you feel when somebody comes up and says, I so respect who you are and what you've accomplished,
right.
And I just would love to know if you're willing to share with me some of your thinking early in your career, because I see you as a role model. I mean,
right.
What are you going to say?
What
are you going to say to that? Get out of here, kid.
Right. We're going to have
I'm not talking to you anymore. You're not going to say that.
No,
you're going to say, okay, let's have lunch together.
But here's an important part. We're going to have a guest on the show here in the next couple of weeks, and he's the top or one of the top people in the Denver, Colorado metro area. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to him about, people who, that he's tried to help along the way. And he's a very disciplined guy, very goal-oriented, has been very successful in real estate. Mm-hmm. And he says, he goes, people walk in my office, they want to know this, they want to know that. And he goes, and I finally got to the point after a long time where he said, well, are you going to do it? Somebody would walk in, are you going to do it if I tell you? Or are you just wasting my time?
Oh, that's a great one.
Right?
That's
and
right.
Productive people who are very productive themselves really enjoy taking the break if they can give to you. Mm-hmm. But like this guy says, I'll give you all my time, but it's only wasted if you don't do it.
Hey,
so seeking out that person.
If I tell you what to do, are you going to do it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So final question then is going to be, all right, as a coach, then what do you, as that accountability coach, and let's think of this again for the people who have not had coaching. Let's think of it in terms of, I can't afford to write the check yet for a coach. But I'm going to be a coach to someone. So tell me how, what I owe to someone that I'm coaching, if we're both at that level. In other words, I think that a lot of the accountability things save the mindset stuff. Mm-hmm. But did you do this and did you get the doors knocked you want to do, that kind of number pushing can be done by someone to your point that's a colleague or whatever. So if I'm that guy that someone comes and asks, how do I deal with that? What's my responsibility to that person now? Does that question make any sense?
Well, I think
you can say no because we're honest with each other.
I think certainly the questions I put into the Forbes article are a core set of questions that can be tailored to your unique situation. But if you have somebody in your organization who is having great success, and if they're willing to share, and that if you could ask them, are they willing to share with you what you consider to be the sort of the checklist for success as far as that goes? But it all adds up to you having the chutzpah to ask. Too many people sit back and they're afraid to ask.
Right.
And I tell you, there's nothing worse than the unasked question. You've got this burning question, and if you don't ask it, it's going to take you sideways. It's going to dominate your mind. It's going to shut down your ears. People are going to be talking, and you're going to keep thinking about that question. What am I supposed to be doing? Oh, my gosh. So I think you have to be brave. You just reach out and ask. You'll be surprised what people are willing to help you with.
Right.
If you simply reach out to them respectfully.
And ask. Steve, thank you. And we're going to have you back a lot during Ambitious Broker. And I think that as we start meeting people, talking issues, this background of yours is going to be really valuable to people. So,
thanks. I look forward to sharing. I'm at a phase in my life where the greatest feelings I have are in sharing insights that people are willing and able to apply.
Right.
Because they work. I know.
And you've got plenty of arrows in your back with your great successes.
Well,
so.
it's funny. One of the questions is always, how did you know that? And I said, well, gosh, I made that mistake 20 years ago.
30 times.
30 times.
30 times, yeah.
So let me save you some grief.
Well, thank you again. Thank all of you for joining an Ambitious Broker today. And we'll see you next time around.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Ambitious Broker Podcast, where elite real estate professionals share their secrets to success, discuss topics impacting their industry, and gain professional development insights. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please rate it and leave a review.